I can't believe that the Lorax is literally 9 years old. It is definitely one of my favorite kids movies. I've watched it a trillion times and I simply love it. The concept, the aesthetic, the story, it's just so beautiful and very entertaining. For the ones living under a rock who haven't watched it or heard of it, The Lorax is a 2012 American animated musical fantasy film produced by Illumination Entertainment and based on Dr. Seuss' children's book of the same name. When I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago, I realized I had missed a lot of elements in it. Its target demographic are little kids, and it looks colorful and playful. The movie doesn't have the same aura of most of the dystopian fiction movies that come to mind when thinking of this genre, like The Hunger Games or Divergent, but if we look at it closely, it's more similar to them than we might think. When the movie starts, we are introduced to the imaginary city of Sneedville.
We opened in Sneedville, a city they say that was plastic and fake, and they liked it that way.
The people that live in it seem to be thriving. They are all dancing and singing a very catchy song, which I can't seem to stop singing these days. They all have smiles on their faces and seem to be enjoying themselves with their new parking lot, store-bought air, and artificial disco trees. Okay, but seriously, the society presented in the movie is an illusion of a perfect utopia to the people that live in it. Later, as the movie goes on, we will see how their lives are not as perfect as they look. Then we are introduced to a boy named Ted with great stalker abilities who hopes to win the heart of his dream girl, Audrey. When he learns of her wish to see a real tree, Ted seeks out the Onceler, a rent old businessman outside of town. Upon hearing of how he gave into his greed for profits and devastated the land, Ted is inspired to undo the disaster. Ted had a hard time finding the truth because of the constant surveillance cameras all around the city and the gigantic wall at the end of it, hiding the dead ecosystem on the other side. The greedy mayor of the city, Aloysius O'Hare, has made his fortune exploiting the environmental collapse and is determined to stop the boy from undermining his business. Not only do they have cameras controlled by O'Hare, the citizens also seem to have other advanced technological devices, such as the trees. Additionally, the food they consume is some sort of gelatin, and the air they breathe comes in a bottle, and the brand that produces it is O'Hare's. These bottles also cause environmental damage, which is all part of O'Hare's plan for making even more money. And in general, the lifestyle of the characters is really different from the one we have on the present, and definitely serves as a way of showing the viewer the possible consequences of environmental damage, which we are already facing today. Even though Ted went to the Onceler for Audrey, he did eventually start to genuinely care about trees. He starts to believe that the way of life he had isn't the one he wants anymore. Ted is a protagonist that questions society and that struggles to find the truth and make it public. The citizens seem brainwashed by the idea of trees. O'Hare almost convinced them of trees being a terrible thing for them, manipulating them by using their worst fears, lying about the real effect trees would have on the city. If they didn't open their eyes at that last chance they had, they wouldn't know of the terrible lifestyle they had behind all that fake perfection and happiness. Lastly, I wanted to mention that I really like that this movie is targeted for little kids, principally because it is a perfect way of teaching them this message in a fun but evident way. Most documentaries on the topic fail to do this because they make the children bored. They don't have an effect on them because of the way the ideas are presented, or the images can be a little triggering, and parents prefer not to make their kids watch it. Kids genuinely enjoy the movie, and it causes a big impact on them, and even on adults. My little brother cried during it when seeing the animals in poor conditions, but looked happy in the end, full of hope. If it hadn't been for its colorful, entertaining format, he would have probably just fallen asleep. For this and many other reasons, this movie is a great, not obvious example of a dystopian fiction film, with the power and magic of opening minds to the future and the possible ways of making it better. If you're interested on taking a look at the sources I used for making this video essay, you can find them linked in the description box.